Welcome, everybody, to the Bothell City Council meeting for December 9th. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thank you so much, Clerk. We are missing two council members tonight. Looks like Deputy Mayor Spivey and Councilmember Agnew are absent and excused. First item on the agenda is our meeting agenda approval. Does anybody have any? Thank you. Any changes, alterations? Councilmember Sandberg?
Well, it looks like we have just one item on the agenda tonight with some time for visitors' comments. And so I noticed that the budget discussion, we're considering adopting the budget tonight, and is that correct that we're scheduled 10 minutes for that discussion?
Currently scheduled for 10 minutes for that discussion.
Was there a reason why we were scheduled for 10 minutes?
Would you like to extend that time?
I certainly would. I would like to have at least 2 hours.
2 hours. All right. Well, since that is such a significant change of time, I'm going to let each council member chip in, starting at your side of the dais. Councilmember Evans.
Well, I appreciated Councilmember Sandberg's questions. I got all those answers and things. I thought it was very detailed. I can't believe you got 2 more hours of questions, but...
Well, I don't know if I have 2 more hours of discussion, but I do have questions on the questions that I've asked. So I guess I asked for a lot of time so that I wouldn't have to ask midway through the meeting for an extension.
Is there a time that you're comfortable with, Councilmember Evans?
An hour.
Okay.
That's about where I'm at as well, and if we need to extend, we can always later.
Okay. What about you, Councilmember Ryan?
I'd just like to be done by 10.
That's later than normal by an hour. I'm comfortable with an hour, and like we said, if we're finding that at that point there's still good ways to go, it sounds like you have consideration for further time. Good. Other items, anyone? There's not really other items to comment on. I believe that there is a request for an executive session. Is that correct, Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll add an executive session to it's already on as item number 6 on our agenda.
Just a question, though, Mayor. I don't see the city attorney. Is he here then?
He will be. He's traveling from another city, and so he expects to be late, but he should be here by the time the executive session occurs.
Is it fair to say the call for an executive session is over legal matters?
Yes, it is potential litigation, but
Potential litigation.
I don't know if he's had time to give it much thought, or so.
Okay.
We could certainly go into the session, and then if he doesn't have the adequate information, we can do it again later.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
At least I can start the conversation, whatever is your concern. Did you raise your hand? Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to have the council weigh in on a Sound Cities Association committee report. I just got to have some advice from you guys on how to vote.
I'd love to do that right before the executive session, so potentially if we go into the executive session, we could maybe end at that point. Do you see the item that we go into executive session coming back tonight for anything that we'd make a public decision on or not?
No, there would be no action
Okay.
tonight.
Okay. Does that sound good? So Sound Cities. Okay, anything on the projected agenda? We are scheduled for an extremely short meeting, so it appears next Tuesday night. I know it's a lot of Christmas events are going on and other holiday events. Even though it may just be 30 minutes to an hour, hopefully we can have council still attend. Does everybody at this point plan on attending next Tuesday just to get a gauge? Okay, so we will have a quorum. I see 4 heads nodding. Perfect. Well, next is our visitor section. This is an opportunity for citizens and non-citizens of Bothell to come and address council for 3 minutes. I do have 2 sign-up sheets here, and then I'll open up to the rest of the public for opportunity to comment. First on my list is Sandy Gwynn. Nice to see you, Miss Gwynn. We already have your address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Last week, council had a discussion about public records requests, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a future meeting on this topic, but I'd like to provide you with a citizen's viewpoint. And I'm going to use the RFA, or Regional Authority, Regional Fire Authority, as an example. Early on, and I can't remember if it was the consultant that the group hired or if it was a fire chief from a visiting fire agency, that said, above all, put all documents on the web. All. Transparency was extremely important to that person through experience. This did not happen with our process. In addition, the regular RFA committee meetings that were occurring at night became less, and more subcommittee meetings occurred during the daytime. The subcommittee minutes are less than 100 words for the 2-hour meeting. I gave you examples of this prior. Also, they're not recorded as the regular meeting is. I've also been asked to make a public, when I make a public records request, I have to go to the Woodinville Fire District in Woodinville, North Shore Fire District in Kenmore, and to Bothell. And I have to do this before 5, unless I can get the document to download correctly and transmit it in a public records request via email. In reviewing a public records request, I came across an email from a Bothell council member who is on the RFA committee to another fire commissioner who is also on this committee. It's dated September 1st, 2014. I will not be at the meetings this week. I have a temporary reassignment at work, and the pool to get coverage is reduced to just a few people, and they are all not available. Could I get notes from you on both meetings, please? Thanks to you for all your understanding. Now, this member gets all the documents emailed to him. They have requested that the minutes be reduced to a little itty-bitty paragraph that the citizen gets to try to understand. That's why I'm making public records request. This process from a citizen's viewpoint, especially when I get this email in a public records request where he wants detailed notes from other commissioners, and I will respect my time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gwynn. Good to see you again, as always. Actually, on this side,
I have a question for the speaker.
You have open to a question? Great.
I'll let her hand in her comments. This is an issue that's important to me, and I just want to make sure that if the speaker prepared comments, that she was able to get through all of her prepared comments and not let the timer cut her off.
Well, I wanted to respect the mayor's comments because, to me, an orderly procedure is really essential for a well-run meeting to make sure that other topics on the agenda get their appropriate time, like with the budget where you're wanting more additional time. So I'm fine with 3 minutes. It's hard for me, as you know. I like to talk a lot, but I do appreciate you listening, and I did get my points across. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gwynn. Appreciate it. Councilmember Roger Cecil.
I'd like to just clarify that I'm not a council member.
No?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Roger Cecil. I serve on the Parks Board here, and we have a couple other board members who probably want to share as well. But we wanted to just support the whole idea of separating out a Parks and Rec department within the city budget. We've talked from time to time over the last couple of years and had some discussions over, I would say, the last couple of months, a little more discussion. We haven't seen a lot of the details in terms of what the impacts would be financially or whatever, but that's definitely something that we would support as a board. And I would like to say I watched your meeting from last week, and I do like the idea, at least to get a start on this thing, of separating somebody out and at least getting it established, even if it's not the full version of a Parks and Rec department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's important for us to hear from the Parks Board. So thank you to our chair of the Parks Board. Sorry for the Freudian slip. Anybody else from the public like to address council this evening? Some consideration? No. Okay. Well, that comes to the conclusion of our visitor section. Thank you so much for the comments this morning or this evening. Next on the agenda is our ordinance and resolutions, and that is the AB 14194 to consider an ordinance adopting the 2015-2016 biennial budget. We have extended our time to 1 hour. This starts at 6:10, so at this point we have until 6:10 or 7:10. Sorry. City Manager Stowe.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. We've had several meetings now on the proposed budget since I've delivered it to you on November 4th. You also have a series of responses from Finance Director Shackman under a December 2nd memorandum. And the budget that I'm recommending that you support and adopt this evening is essentially the same budget that was delivered to you on November 4th with one change. And the change that I would recommend that you consider based upon the discussion that was held last week is for 2 reclassification changes. And those 2 reclassification changes would essentially create a Parks and Recreation Board. And let me review those changes with you very briefly. This is the existing organization within Public Works. As you can see, Parks and Recreation is contained as a division within Public Works, as identified by those 3 org chart boxes or 3 personnel, the Recreation Park Manager, the Office Specialist, the Recreation Coordinator, and then a part-time Recreation Assistant. What we would consider to be step 1. Step 1 is the initial step that we would make in the proposed 2014, 2015-2016 biennium, is to reclassify the Park and Recreation Manager position into a Parks and Recreation Director position, and also to reclass the Office Assistant position into an Administrative Assistant position. This is consistent with how we have done reclasses in other departments for those types of positions. You can see all the personnel that were in the orange boxes that were previously in underneath Public Works. Those have all been shifted down to this new department. So all of the Park and Recreation programming activities and all the maintenance activities would be under this new department. Having said that, although this does create a department, it still doesn't add much bandwidth or capacity to address Park and Recreation needs, simply by going from a title change from...
It's just to notify the public. I believe Deputy Mayor Spivey, is that you online or on the phone?
Yes, it is.
Great. We're just entering the presentation for the budget discussion.
Okay, Mayor Free, just to let you know, you're kind of cutting in and out, so I'll do my best with it.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
City Manager Still.
So simply changing a position title or reclassing a position from a Park and Recreation Manager to a Park and Recreation Director doesn't provide enough capacity or bandwidth to really accomplish, I think, all that you'd want a department to do. But nonetheless, this is what was discussed last week and what I'm recommending for you as part of consideration for the 15-16 budget. It is a start in terms of moving towards a fully functioning Park and Recreation Department. The dollars associated with this can be supported within the budget. It's approximately $120,000, $60,000 annually. All of this cost would be absorbed within the general fund. However, we expect during the mid-biennium review either make an adjustment or simply have excess capacity within the other funds to support this $120,000. And the reason why that will be the case is currently there are several positions within Public Works that draw upon funds from the Park and Recreation General Fund. They no longer will be supporting Park and Recreation activities, so therefore their time, their salaries, if you will be dependent upon the 5 remaining funds which they do draw from, which would be the General Fund, the street fund, and then the 3 utility funds. So essentially, those 5 funds will be supporting these reclasses associated with the Park and Recreation Department of $120,000. Future costs, however, should be something that I know we'll all be concerned with, and that is really to create more bandwidth or capacity in the staff. You really need at least one more position within the Parks and Recreation, likely more. And so this is an org chart that simply shows you'd have not only a Park and Recreation Director, but you'd also have a Park and Recreation Manager position at some point. This could be the 2016-2017 biennium. And you'll likely have more expenses, too, as the department becomes fully functional and really starts to address more areas in Park and Recreation. This is the simple cost allocation. Focus mostly on the 2016 going forward because the 2015 numbers really account for some vacation buyout and sick leave that we have to account for with the incumbent Park and Recreation Manager when that person retires at the end of February. But generally you can see it's split over the 5 areas of general fund, street, water, sewer, and storm in terms of how that $120,000 going forward will be allocated. So Mayor and Council, again, my recommendation is that the Council support and adopt the budget that's before you. You do have at your dais a new alternative Exhibit A, which allocates that $120,000 in the general fund. Again, this will likely be spread out over the 5 funds, either through a mid-biennial budget adjustment or simply supported or absorbed within those areas as we move forward with 2015-2016. I'd be glad to address any questions that the Council might have. Finance Director Shackman and the other directors are here, too, to respond to any other questions that Council has at this time.
Good. Thank you so much, City Manager. And just one last thing. I know per our protocol manual, I'm supposed to confirm. Councilor or Deputy Mayor Spivey, are you able to hear me clearly? Apparently not. Deputy Mayor Spivey?
Hello, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you. It's all voice activated, so it takes a moment for it to come in, and if the volume drops down, it dips out a little bit. But so far, what I got was about the, I believe it was $120,000 budget impact, or that the city manager spoke of.
Perfect. Thank you. And everybody in the back of the room, can you hear Deputy Mayor Spivey fine? Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll open up to questions now. Councilmember Evans.
Well, I'd like to thank the staff for this proposal. I do think it's a good start. The city manager referred to the fact that it doesn't provide a lot of bandwidth, but I can tell you that Parks and Recreation people are very creative and can do a lot with not very much. So I think it is a good start. I think we get someone in here who has a background in, all things in Parks and Recreation, and we're talking about a potential growth in our department, and I think this can be a great opportunity for this person to be on board the first at the beginning and be instrumental in the future development of our department, which I think is an essential element for our community. One question, you mentioned the $120,000, and I know that the recreation manager's salary, I'm assuming that's included in the 2015-2016 budget it's in the budget now. So doesn't most of that offset the cost of the Parks and Recreation Director? Isn't there dollars already budgeted for that recreation manager position?
There are, but you remember the $120,000 is really comprised of the several public works positions that are responsible currently for performing park and recreation functions. No longer will be performing park and recreation functions, thereby their salary will still have to be backfilled by those other funds.
No, when you say backfilled by the other funds, if I understand that there's departments draw a certain amount of money out to support their department, in this case public works and things, from other funds, but if in fact let's say the public works director is going to now have utilities and streets and capital projects, whatever it might be, then wouldn't that money that was initially coming from Parks and Recreation, wouldn't that be spread back to those other departments where the work is actually being focused now in those other departments?
Right, and that's what, if you look at the 2016 spreadsheet, that's what that is showing, is all those positions work being billed out across those 5 fund areas. And that's effectively the $10,000 in each fund over those 5 funds, the 3 utilities. If you take the example of the Public Works Director, is no longer performing park and recreation activities, and so her time is going to be allocated across the 3 utilities, the street fund, and the general fund.
Okay.
And when you add all of those up, all of those staff who are performing park and rec activities, it accounts for the $120,000 approximately.
Okay. But there is at least a good share of the potential salary or the salary of the Parks and Recreation Director already in the budget, because
Oh, that's correct.
we
Yeah.
budgeted for that position as a recreation manager, and we're merely doing a reclass to
Yes.
support that position.
Yes.
Okay. And as far as the recreation manager position, I think, as the city manager said, we're not ready for that. Our recreation division isn't that big yet. There will be a time when we'll have recreation supervisors potentially over athletics and cultural arts and hopefully aquatics someday if we have a swimming pool and those types of things. And that's when I think a recreation manager is key to be involved. But at this point, I think it's great that park maintenance is coming over under this position, and I would hope that this position could provide administration for the department, oversee the planning and facility development. I think they can do depending on the person that's hired in that position, they could potentially do capital projects, and we may not need to draw as much upon Public Works to do that if they have that experience. So, I mean, normally when we do a capital project, we hire a consultant to do plans and specifications and oversee construction. So that director, if they have that ability or experience, I would think could oversee that process and not have to draw again up on Public Works. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to provide a important element in our community and for us to grow this department. So I'm supportive of this, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Do you have any other questions, or are you at the conclusion? Great. Councilmember Sandberg.
Can you explain again this table and how you found the $120,000? And I see red numbers on there, so I'm curious what that means. And did you find, when you say you found the $120,000 within the general fund, were you finding that, were you reducing other proposed personnel costs to account for this, or is this $120,000 that's coming out of the M&O portion of the general fund?
Great question. I didn't cover that. The $120,000, coincidentally, the day we started looking at this, we were informed that our property tax levy would increase approximately by $60,000 annually from what we'd already forecasted within our budget. So the general fund in and of itself can support the $120,000 that we're promoting these 2 classifications will cost. The general fund, in fact, will not be supporting all of that $120,000 because we anticipate it being spread out over the street, water, sewer, and storm funds as well. And so that's what this table is simply trying to illustrate, the impact to each of those funds. The Exhibit A that you have contains all of it within the general fund, just for convenience, but we'd anticipate that the other 4 funds, the street, water, sewer, and storm, we'd either have capacity during the biennium, or if not, we'd make a budget amendment to account for the additional expenses that are going to be associated with those salaries, which were formerly being paid for by the Park and Recreation or the general fund.
So let me just understand. So our property tax projections for the biennium are going up by about $120,000.
Yes, I think $59,000 annually was the forecast.
$59,000 in 2015. I received this from Hazel Gantz from King County. after our budget meeting after our meeting last week, and because of new construction and state assessed utilities, we received our final property tax estimate from the counties, and it actually went up $59,000 in 2015, and then with the compounding impact, it's $62,000 in 2016. So ironic that the number was the same, but that's what it is. And we have the spreadsheets from Hazel, and you'll see that actually the $60,000 will actually come in from the property tax assessment.
So by comparison, this budget includes a 1% property tax increase, which is about $100,000 in 2015, and compounded over the biennium is about $300,000.
Correct. This is not a budget increase. This is due to new construction or state assessed. So it is a matter of new construction coming onto our tax rolls. This $60,000.
But maybe somebody in the listening audience, we're expecting revenue that we weren't expecting at the beginning of this budget process, but we're increasing property tax by 1% to account for revenue that we didn't think we had, and now we do, I guess, is what my point is.
Well,
whether it's new construction or not, that's great.
Well, new construction also, we have to provide services to the new entities or the new development. So I wouldn't say it's an increase in property tax. It's just an increase in revenues to support new construction or new development that we're required to support and serve. So I wouldn't say it's an increase in property tax or the increase in the levy.
Okay. That's all I have about the parks issue. I'll wrap that into another discussion that I have.
This is the just questions overall, not just specific to the park.
Oh, so I do have other questions. I just wanted to ask questions specifically about the Parks and Rec proposal. So if other council members have questions about the Park and Rec proposal, I think it's better to stay on topic with that since he just gave the presentation.
Well, you have no more questions on the budget, right?
I don't have another question. Any questions? Have just a general comment that in relation to the budget very quickly, looking at the capital funds and what we have budgeted for sidewalks and things. I think it's like $300,000 in 2015 and $600,000 or something in 2016. And we know there's a tremendous demand for sidewalks and a real need. We also know that they're costly to develop. And this is something I guess I would like to discuss further in our retreat as to how we can fund sidewalks. I know some of my previous experience, sidewalks were funded with local improvement districts. And apparently that's not being used as much today, but it was a viable source in the past, and this is where property owners assess themselves for developing a sidewalk in front of their house or on their street or whatever. And the result of that is a significant increase in the benefit of their property, the value of their property. One thought I had was that maybe we have funds budgeted for some sidewalks, maybe somehow we could use that as a match to some other funding source that we come up with or something. So whether that's from the neighbors or from wherever. So I guess that's one thing I would like to have discussed as part of our retreat is how can we do more in funding our sidewalks and things and stretch those dollars of what we have. So other than that, all of my questions have been answered on the budget. I have no other questions.
Perfect. Why don't you continue on with your questions, and we'll let other council members jump in after you're done.
All right. So staff responded to the questions. There's a list of questions that I provided, responded yesterday. So thank you very much for that. And so the packet is in your folder, so if you want to pull that out, that would be great. And then in general, when I've asked for information and staff has provided it, I am asking council to consider adding all of that information into the budget. I think that this is information that the budget is the people's document, and the information that I have requested is designed to provide more information for the general reader of the budget. And if it's sufficient enough for the staff to answer the question in a memo form, I think it's important enough to include that information in our budget document. This is the people's document, and it helps clarify and improve understanding. So when I go through my questions, I'm going to say, this is, instead of going through a long list of amending motions, like I'd like to make an amending motion that the response to question number 2 be added to the budget document, I would like you to just maybe mark the numbers so that we can save time at the end and have a discussion on, for example, whether you want that information in the budget or you don't. But as opposed to me making each individual amending motion, I want you to be thinking, have that mindset so that we can save time in the end. Okay? All right. So starting with number 1, which was essentially asking for historical data in the budget, and that was provided to us on December 2nd. It is a packet from our finance director that on the first page has a breakdown of the general fund personnel budget from the last biennium and this proposed biennium, and then the historical information and graphical and table format. And so I think that that is information that should be included in the budget. I think it's really good information, and staff has gone through the effort of providing that to us, and I'd like to honor that effort by including that information in the budget document. The reason why is because the budget is our planning document, and to understand the roadmap for the future, you need to understand where you've been. And when we go through this process again for the next biennium, I think that that information is vital for the public to have so that they understand a little bit more about the budgeting process. If my memory serves me, we have gotten maybe one tangential comment on the budget. And we have 25,000 registered voters in this city. And I find it hard to believe that we would only be able to muster one public comment on the most important document that we do as council members. So I think more information is better, and I'm also going to talk about that later. So looking at the December 2nd memo, that first page where it has the general fund personnel budgets broken out by expenditure category. So salaries, overtime, pension, insurance, unemployment, workers' comp, all that sort of thing. I would like to point out that our general fund personnel budget for this biennium is increasing. It's not the amount. It is increasing $6.085 million. And I've mentioned previously that I have a concern about the sustainability of personnel costs in our budget. This is a 10% increase over the last biennium. And when I look at this first page, so $6.1 million increase in this biennium budget over last, and I look at the positions that are listed below, I see net zero budget impact, other non-general funds.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a point of order? I don't hear a question here. And if we're going to deliberate on the budget, I'm happy to make a motion and we can have that deliberation. But I haven't, if these are questions of staff, I don't hear a question mark at the end of your comments.
Your comments in the form of a question.
I think that this is an appropriate time to have a dialogue amongst council members. insinuating that or implying that we are listening to each other. And again, I would say that this is the most important document. I have gone through the effort of requesting information, speaking with the finance director, listing out my questions for you so that you can have them in writing, receiving them in response. I feel that we are denigrating the process by saying, I want you to form everything you say in the form of a question. So
If I can restate my point of order, I'm not denigrating the process. I was just confused. I didn't know that we were deliberating as opposed to asking. I thought this was a time to ask staff questions. I'm more than happy, and I think we budgeted a lot of time for you to make comments on the budget or to opine on your questions. But my understanding from the mayor, and Mr. Mayor, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the initial part of the meeting was for council members to ask questions of staff where they had information that they still wanted. I don't know if every other member has exhausted themselves of that, if they have, or if you're wish to make comments later. But
well, as a point of
I'm just seeking. That was my question to the mayor as a point of information and
as a point of order.
As a point of order, which is directed not to you but to the mayor.
As a point of order, we have allowed one other council member to ask questions and give his impression on the budget. And so, given that preceding response from one of the council members, I felt that we were in a general question and deliberation mode.
Well, how about we set the order that this is a time for questions. Right after that, we'll have a time for discussion and a motion. So if you could get back to your questions, that would be appropriate. Can you come to the microphone? We have a question from the public.
I thought
Is the button pushed?
it is.
Okay.
I was wondering when the public, because I thought this was an open public meeting for the public, it was continued, that we have an opportunity on this agenda item.
We
Just to
had
ask.
several public meetings that were open for the public to come to make comment, and then we closed the public hearing last week, but invited the public to be able to speak during the visitor section of this meeting on the budget.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I was at the meeting before where you continued the public hearing
That was 2 meetings ago.
2 meetings ago.
Right.
And when I saw just a study session on the agenda, I said, I'm not going to come down. It's just a study session. I can watch it from home.
Yep.
I fell asleep.
Oh, no.
But
Did you fall asleep watching our meeting? And I can't say that all of us were completely awake up here. So I'm sorry, at this point, we have concluded the public hearing.
Well, can I make
Thank
a
you.
motion to reopen the public hearing?
I don't know, is that in order?
An actual public hearing cannot be reopened in this manner. The council could choose to open public comment.
Yeah, I'm fine with opening public comment. So, if you
is
just
now a
want
good time to?
yeah, why don't you, Councilmember Sandberg, you okay yielding your time for the time being and letting Councilmember, or former Councilmember Gwynn comment?
I'm okay with allowing the members of the one member of the audience of our 25,000 registered voters to give us her comments on the budget, and I feel we have addquate time to address
Is that
my
a yes
concerns.
or a no? Well, you don't have to give an editorial comment on everything that we're doing tonight. So, ma'am, if you could go forward, we'd love to hear from you.
As you have taken great care to read the budget, and I know there may only be one person up here from the public, but I know that council knows how important this document is. And I just want to remind you, as you project out for not just the 2 years, but for 7, 8 years, if the Regional Fire Authority goes through, and you're going to be, that's part of your budget, and you're going to be discussing that at your retreat, it's $1.50 per thousand, or it's $1 per thousand with a benefit charge. And the $1 per thousand benefit charge actually, over time, would cost the homeowner or the business property owner far more than $1.50 per thousand. But I'm going to use $1.50 as an example. $200,000 valuation would mean an additional $300 a year for that homeowner or property owner. An average median house price is $400,000. That would be an additional $600 a year in taxes, property taxes, that Bothell residents would be paying. A $900,000 house would be $1,350 additional per year. It's a lot of money, and it's actually, I think, has a harder impact on a $200,000 home. An owner for that to have to pay an additional $300 a year in taxes. So I really encourage you to really look at the budget and pinch where you can. When I first got in council, we put a hiring freeze in place, and we didn't hire people. People left, and we merged some jobs, so no one got really laid off, but through attrition, we were able to reduce our budget and help get out of that financial mess that we were in, along with the economy improving. So there's a lot of components to it, but just please remember, everyone is asking the homeowner and the property owner for more taxes, and there's only so much that we have to give.
Thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Gwynn, you've taught me a lot over my many years and when you were in council, and a lot of that teaching was during the budgetary time. So I appreciate your comments for sure. Councilmember Sandberg, you have the floor again. If you could limit this to questions to staff, and then we'll open it back up to council discussions or motion.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I was unable to get all of what former Councilmember Gwynn's comments were. What I got out of that was that she was referencing that the service charge from the RFA, and that's really all I got out of it. And so I wasn't sure how it was tying into our budget discussion.
Just consideration for how an RFA potentially could affect our budget in the future and alterations that could be in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Sandberg.
Okay, so my second question is, and I'm reading this for the benefit of the public. This biennial budget mentions City Hall, has a picture of the groundbreaking, but does not discuss the payment of this debt, which starts when we take possession of the City Hall, which is projected to be November 2015. Certainly, full payment will be due in 2016. This decision doubled our non-voted debt from $50 million to $100 million. I am unclear why the 6320 legislation prevents us from listing this as a liability in this budget, when we are most likely taking possession of the building and having to start making payments, certainly no later than 2016, which is the second year of this biennial budget. And so I asked staff to include language in the budget that acknowledges that we will have to make a lease payment during this biennial budget. This budget does not include any information to that point. And then the response was, a note can be added in the expenditure section debt chart. My question is, your suggested language says the 2015-2016 budget anticipates the first lease payment in 2016. Do you agree that that first lease payment is $3.4 million and should be included in the text of the budget?
That it's $3.4 million for the.
Or what is the first lease payment?
I believe it's $3.1 million. But that lease payment is already anticipated in the budget and is included in our capital facilities plan and shows it there. And then it carries over to the budget in 2016 where an appropriation through this budget will be made to actually make that payment. So we can't show it as a debt liability in our charts because our charts are prescribed on how we present that information from the state and from the Government Finance Officers Association. So my response was basically to say that we can add language and a hyperlink to where the debt payment is actually being paid out of, what fund. But I can't put it into, I can't show it as a debt liability at this point because we don't have a debt liability at this point.
I just think it's interesting that we can say the budget anticipates a first lease payment, but we don't say what the amount is. And yet we know what that lease payment will be, or we have a very good estimate of what that lease payment will be. And instead, we ask them to go to another document.
I wasn't hiding that information. It's included in the budget, in the detail, and the dollar amount is there. And also, within the capital facilities plan, we have hyperlinks throughout this document that take us from the budget document to the capital facilities plan that give detailed information on those items. And that is what I responded in my answer, was basically saying we can put a hyperlink in straight to the CFP so people will see that data. I can't take all the data from the capital facilities plan and put it into the budget without making it a document that is not user-friendly. So hyperlinks between the document make it easier for people who, some people want more detail, which is what you're requesting. Some people want less. They want more of an overview. So, you know, we try to meet in the middle and provide what everybody needs. So I think the budget is there, and the dollar amount for the lease payment is included in the budget.
I guess I'm having a hard time finding that in the budget. So when I do a word search in the budget, and I've read the budget twice to look for that, I don't see mention of that. If I was a member of the public thinking, we're building a city hall, how are we going to pay for it? Where is the mention of it in the budget? I am at a loss of where it says that.
Well, my response to your question basically stated that, you know, we can add a sentence in there stating that the dollars are in there, but I cannot add it to the actual chart. I mean, I can't show it as our debt liability, but I can definitely say that this budget anticipates a certain dollar amount for debt service or monthly lease payments towards the City Hall building. So, and that information is included in the capital section of the budget, and also through hyperlinks you can go straight to the CFP. So it is in there multiple times that, you know, the plan is to make those payments. But we also have other projects within the CFP that are included in this budget that also don't have dollar amounts tied to them within the verbiage. So, you know, they talk about the projects, and then we give the link where to go to get more detailed information for those.
So when I look in the capital fund section, the capital improvements fund section,
You have 1 minute remaining.
I have 1 minute remaining.
That's correct.
Well, thank you for timing me so closely in, like I said, the most important document. But I will go on.
You don't need
Because
to
I
have
have-
1 o'clock. We can
I
actually
have-
cut your time off now.
No.
Because here's the reality. You
No.
asked for 2 hours of time. I've actually given you 24 minutes, which is 2 hours of your time. So if we took 2 hours divided across 5 council members for their time, which actually we have a 6th on here, if we just take 5, that allocates 24 minutes per person for 2 hours allocated. You asked for 2 hours, which I've divided fairly and given you 24 minutes. I gave Councilmember Evans 5 minutes, is what he took. So, sorry, 5 minutes exactly. So you've had 24. So
Well,
your
then I
time
will
is more
ask,
important than the
I
other
will
council
ask
members up
one
here?
last question. No, I feel that the entire process is flawed if we are timing ourselves based on
You're the one who
a-
asked for 2 hours. I've
You're
given
the
you
one who
allocation
scheduled
of
this
2 hours.
discussion for 10 minutes. You're someone with your blessing scheduled this discussion for 10 minutes. Budget adoption for 10 minutes. Okay, I will ask my last question.
Good.
In our street fund, we are budgeting to allow our overall street pavement index to decline from a pavement rating of 70 to 68. How much money would it take to keep the pavement rating at 70 instead of 68? Because essentially what we're doing with this budget is we are managing the decline of our streets. Please provide 3 alternatives as to how we could achieve cost savings elsewhere in the budget to maintain our pavement rating at 70. The city manager's response was, or staff's response was, the city's appropriate street pavement index rating as well as funding has been identified as a key issue for discussion at the council's 2015 retreat in January. So my question is, didn't we discuss street pavement and street preservation at our last council retreat? Didn't we discuss this in March of this year? Haven't we had plenty of public testimony talking about the importance of street maintenance, sidewalks, crosswalks, all those things that are important to people? And yet it's not in the budget. And this response, when I ask for, can you provide an alternative on how we can go from a pavement rating of to 70 instead of 68, the response is, I don't really want to answer that question. So can you respond? Why did you not even provide one alternative on how to maintain our streets at a rating of 70? You didn't.
You don't need to answer if you don't need to or don't want to. Director Shackman may have a response.
I answered the question the best I could. I basically answered it speaking about the fact that that had been identified for, it's a much more in-depth discussion that needs to be had by all of the council, and so that I'm the one who answered the question. And there was, I wasn't trying not to answer the question. I was just stating that it's a really big question that we need to make decisions on later through the discussion on the retreat. And I will say the last time that we talked about the pavement, the council did take action after the last retreat, and basically that action was to increase business licenses and brought in an additional $500,000, at which time the street fund lost some of its funding and also had a large increase in swim fees. That wasn't anticipated, which took up the entire $500,000 increase from the council's actions. And so that's why we need to go back at the retreat and re-talk about this, because we did discuss it and action was taken. Very positive action was taken. But unfortunately, we had other occurrences that impacted the street budget.
So that concludes the questions. Councilmember Rayam. Floor.
So the first part's not really a question, but I just wanted to thank all the staff for working on this. I know it's a lot of work, and all of you are here late and to hear what we have to say about it. So I just wanted to start off by saying that. So I have some questions. How many public comments have we received that have influenced the outcome, the actual budget? Any public comments like, hey, I don't know, I'd like to see more of this or that. Has there been any public comments that we've received that have influenced how we?
Well, as part of the capital facilities plan process, beyond that, it's been the comments that you've received during the testimony over the course of since November 4th when the budget was submitted to you.
So
but we have a public comment process for the capital facilities plan that were incorporated into the budget.
So we don't hold a matrix of public testimony that we've received about the budget and amended it to maybe meet those public interests?
Well, I can take a stab at it. I mean, the whole process is public, just like when you go to a birthday party or I go to a birthday party in public. People approach me. I was just somewhere this week, and somebody came up and said, hey, what about this roundabout that's planned? And they wanted to talk about it. So the capital facilities plan, like you were involved in and going through that process, looking at projects, that's where a lot of public has their input, and that's where the impact on our budget takes place in many different ways, because those ideas for a roundabout or a traffic light or a street crossing come from citizens, right? They may not come to the dais, and they don't have to have their voices heard, because their voices often are heard through how we reflect them up here on the dais. So that may be one of the avenues.
And I also say that, this budget is built largely by the department directors and myself, and certainly we listen to concerns of citizens throughout the year, not just during the budget cycle when you are presented the budget in November. It's an annual event or a biennial event where we're constantly trying to improve the way we provide services, and we try to collect feedback from citizens directly and indirectly, and we include that into the recommendations that we present to you.
That's a great comment. And right behind you, we have a few members of the Parks Board who certainly contribute to the capital facilities process, and the parks that are on there, those ideas come from them, and they receive comments from the public. Director Shackman?
Yeah. Just a take off what the city manager just said. As the council gets input from the public and we listen to testimony at our meetings and that type of thing, that really influences the council's directives for budget, which is directly how the department directors and the city manager prepare the recommended budget. It ties directly, and we try to take every initiative within that budget and tie it to one of the council's desired budget outcomes. And so we're very influenced by, what the council hears, what we hear, but it's those directives that drove this budget and the capital facilities plan. Those are definitely the two drivers that pushed the budget and the outcome of what's in this budget.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So it's more for the listening public. I know the answer, but so how many council comments have impacted or changed the original budget?
Well, I think I started off by indicating that the proposed budget is the same that you're being asked this evening to support. Whether or not you support it or not is your decision, but what I'm recommending is the same budget that I presented to you on November 4th, plus the change that I reviewed earlier this evening related to the Parks and Recreation Department.
Director Shackman?
In addition to actually changing the appropriation and the spending, we've taken into account the comments from the council. We have staff back here, 3 of them, to make sure we don't miss anything. And we keep track of things that the council say that they want, such as Councilmember Evans mentioned last week that he wanted to see organizational charts for each department. We write those things down. And when I receive these questions and I respond to those, throughout this document, it says we'll add a sentence for this, we'll do this in order to make it more user-friendly or that type of thing, wherever we can. So we definitely take the input of the council or anybody who's going to come in and offer something up to make our document better. We do have restrictions of what we actually can do and can't do as far as presentation goes, but where we can, we add this information. We want to put out the best document too.
Yeah.
Okay?
How many hours did you put into this response?
I did not keep track, but I didn't see much of my family last week.
Can you give me a guess of time?
I was here late every night.
Every night?
Every night.
How late?
Between 1 and 2 in the morning.
Wow. I really appreciate your hard work on this budget and all addressing so many different questions.
I'm happy to answer whatever questions people have in order to support the budget and to provide the most information for decision making.
You do a wonderful job. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
I have more. So does the RFA impact our budget just in response to the public testimony or comment that we just received?
The RFA has no impact on this budget whatsoever. A budget amendment would be required, and a lot of discussion would have to happen before that would ever take place. And of course, voter input is required. So.
And then road maintenance, it says that we have, in the budget there's additional road maintenance staff, and the explanation I think that I understood was that staff was really pretty much dedicated or needed just to support the new roads. So are we anticipating that the older roads aren't going to get attention from the new staff, or is it that they'll be assigned as appropriately distributed amongst all the roads, or is it we're just going to really fix and maintain the new roads that we have? I don't know. It was just kind of unclear in the how it was written, because it was clear like we got those positions because there's new stuff to maintain. Does that mean we'll maintain those at a higher level, or is that level of maintenance going to be distributed amongst the road system?
My guess is that they would take the new roadways and add them to what we already have and allocate the work over that. But I think that's a question that's better answered by the Public Works Director or the Public Works Superintendent.
So the new positions were requested consistent with the capital facilities plan and the resource needs we have to maintain the new infrastructure. And a lot of that is because the new infrastructure is very high maintenance infrastructure. There's a lot of landscaping involved and that sort of thing. So the additional level of service is really to accommodate the new infrastructure.
So they'll be maintained probably at a higher level, I guess, than the other roads, because they'll have that dedicated staffing?
It's primarily the landscaping and the softscaping and the furnishings that are associated with the new roads that are requiring the additional level of service. So that one of the key factors here is that the new roadways that we're constructing are very different from our existing roadways.
Then I have one more question. So it's great that we're getting 2 new playgrounds through asset replacement with this budget. I think there's other ones that need to be replaced as well as the 2 that are on the list. So I'm just curious, are those kind of what's the timeline on those? I know that's kind of a last minute question this spring that you probably don't have just at the top of your head, but where are we at with replacing, like, say, Penn Park, or that's just one that I live near that's pretty rough.
I don't have the asset replacement schedule in front of me at this point, so I'll ask if there's anybody from Public Works here who has the details. Otherwise, we will respond tomorrow through email or a written memo.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody has the specifics, so in order to make sure we give you good information, let us respond in writing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's it.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Rayan. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, and I guess this first goes to Tammy. What is the wealthiest city in terms of largest tax revenue in the state of Washington?
I don't know, but I would assume it's the city of Seattle, as far as the taxes that they bring in.
I think you're right. I don't know either, but I would guess that you're probably correct.
We have there's many cities that collect business taxes that we don't. There's many cities that charge a head tax. We are popular in our business. Parks are full because we're business friendly in that regard. So the tax makeup that we have is a bit different than some of the cities, some neighboring cities.
And does the city of Seattle, for example, have a B&O tax?
I believe they do. Yes, they do. I have
Okay.
3 nods in the back.
And do you know if the city of Seattle has a tax that is specifically designated just for pavement repairs and street maintenance?
Are you referring to a transportation benefit district?
I think it was an individual. It was called a gap transportation levy. Yes.
I would have to look into that, but we can provide.
think they do.
Answer. They do.
So
I'm hearing that they do.
They do. So, and I would ask Aaron this question because I know a lot has come up of our pavement repairs. If you had to guess, what would you guess the backlog of repairs in the city of, which is like the richest city in our state, the backlog of repairs would be on their deferred street maintenance, even with a tax that is devoted specifically to street maintenance? In the huge city of Seattle, where all the companies are, where you have a B&O tax, you have all sorts of revenue, and a specific tax on its citizens that's devoted exclusively to road repairs.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I wouldn't even have a
I was kind
idea
of
where to
surprised at
start.
the number. So it's $578 million in deferred maintenance on all of the street repairs in the city of Seattle, which again has the highest revenues of any city in the state of Washington, and has a tax on its citizen that is specifically for no other purpose just than street maintenance. In the city of Seattle, they also have, I think it's 13.3% of their roads are defined as poor, which means that they're declining to a point where they really can't do any additional maintenance. An additional, I think it's 9% of their streets are defined as very poor. That means that essentially you can't really do anything with those streets other than completely rip them up. And only a little bit more than half of them, of the streets in all of the city of Seattle, are defined as either satisfactory, which is a 71 pavement rating, and only a little bit less than a quarter of them are defined as good, which is a pavement rating of 86 or higher. So I appreciate that. I apologize for asking questions that I already knew the answer to, but it's kind of an occupational hazard with me. But I wanted to bring that up just in terms of context for our discussion tonight, because we've had...
Are you asking a question?
I am. Well, I asked two questions, and I have a third follow-up question. If we were to estimate, and Aaron, what would you say our backlog is if all different, and taking the most sort of liberal number you could for deferred maintenance on pavement?
Although I'm guessing you may already know. If memory serves, when we spoke to the council back earlier this year, we spoke about an increase of, I believe, $3 million over what we currently have per year for pavement overlay.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions, Mayor.
Great, so we've opened it all. Deputy Mayor Spivey, do you have any questions currently?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, we'll open up to general discussion. We are over an hour into this discussion, so our time for that has come to an end. But I think what we'll do is allocate another 45 minutes to discussion, which would lead to a motion. So looking at that time, I'll open it up to anyone.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we adopt the budget with the change that the city manager has made tonight.
Second. So we have a motion by Councilmember Lamb and a second by Mayor Freed. So if everybody could speak to the motion on the table. Who would like to go first?
I'd like to make an amending motion.
Deputy or
I'd like
Councilmember Sandberg.
to make the amending motion that we include the data regarding personnel costs provided to us in the December 2nd memo, and include the data in the response to my questions raised in the letter I sent on the 26th and responded to yesterday, and include all of the suggested explanatory language that was in the response.
Okay, so if you could go slowly one more time, that would be great. The first one I had is personnel costs from the memo December 2nd. Second item is?
So on the package of budget questions that Director Shackman responded to me, to my questions.
The ones that we have this evening?
The ones that are before you this evening. There's tables, there's explanatory language.
Okay, so I have that one. What's the third?
That is it.
Oh, only two. Well, I thought I heard you say several.
Well, it's essentially what's in this document and what's in this document.
Okay, so what's this first document? You said this document. What's the first one you lifted up?
December 2nd memo
Oh, okay.
with the table breakdown of personnel costs and then per department
Okay.
historical data.
And then in the budget questions from tonight, you just want this included in the budget?
No, so for example, there are responses that the staff has made that I've asked clarification on. So they have responded as to why, for example, stormwater fees compound the street fund problem. Nothing in here says explicitly. Well, there's a few here that say staff can add. Okay.
But
they
otherwise, you
don't.
just want this inserted into the budget.
No.
That's what I heard the motion.
I want those responses, those clarifying responses put into the appropriate sections of the budget that they correspond with.
So we'll leave to staff's discretion on which ones are appropriate to add in different sections of the budget document?
Yes, they can do that.
Okay. Would you consider, like, question 37, if we have 198 vehicles, why is the performance measure to have 138 vehicles in service? Turns out 198 figure includes all licensed vehicles, 138, and equipment of 60. That type of clarification of the number of vehicles we have, a number of
No, I
equipment?
mean, that's.
So now staff can make the decision whether to include one question or not question, so it's totally at their discretion based upon your motion.
Well, I guess that's the best I can ask for.
All right,
so
well,
yeah.
the motion is on the table. To speak to your motion?
As I stated earlier, this is the people's document, and the more information that we can provide that provides historical data and explanations that make the document more accessible to people, I think the more we can do that, the better.
Great, thank you. Would you like to speak to your second, sir?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, anybody else like to speak to the motion? Deputy Mayor Spivey, do you want to speak to the motion, or no?
I will not be supporting the amending motion.
Okay, so since we do have the opportunity to have the deputy mayor on the phone, we will be taking a voice vote on this amendment. So all in favor, say aye. So we have 2. Any opposed, say nay.
No.
Nay.
Nay.
So that's 4 against. The amendment fails. 4-2 with 2 council members. 4-2 with 1 council member absent and excused. You still have the floor, Councilmember Sandberg.
Yes. I would also like to make another, I feel like it needs to be in the form of an amending motion, so that's the way I'm going to make it, because I want to make sure this sticks for the next time. And so I would like to make the amending motion that we get a commitment from council that we will approach the budget process differently the next time, meaning, A, that the budget draft would come to council in July before the August break so that we have time to digest it. The public has time to digest it, not in November. B, that we approve a schedule of budget study sessions and public hearings, no less than 4 each, with an introduction to the public on how to understand the budget and how to have an impact on the process. C, that we advertise that schedule in the Bothell Bridge, both the summer and the fall issues. The last fall issue, the fall issue just came out a week or so ago, and there is not a single mention of the budget in there. And D, that we also advertise it in other media outlets, including the Bothell Reporter, Everett Herald, and the Woodinville Weekly. And that is all with the goal of meeting our 5th budget focus area, which is to engage in ongoing dialogue with the public to increase citizens' understanding of and engagement in city issues and to build strong partnerships.
Okay, you have no second.
I'll second.
Got to get on the dime on that. You got to jump right on it. If you leave a void, it's not going to be honored. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Would you like to speak to it, or do you feel that you already have?
I feel that we can do so much more to improve this process and engage the public more than we have, and to allow more time for this essential function that we serve on council, so that we don't feel like we have to watch the clock and be limited to a certain amount of time. I feel that the limited amount of public input that we have gotten directly in this budget process has been, it definitely is a need for improvement.
Would you like to speak to your second?
Yeah, this is something I was going to bring up in deliberation as well, that I think it would be a great idea to have a more involved process, not only for us on council, but for the public in general, to, and not at the 11th hour, but when the actual budget process initiates, which is probably about a year ago, I would assume, to really have more of a robust and public involved and council involved process at that time, instead of at the adoption process.
Thank you. So Other comments? Councilmember Lamb?
So I won't be supporting this motion. It's not because the public isn't involved in our budget process. I think it's really important to have the public involved in everything that we do as a city. And I think to imply that because we haven't had more people come to the dais that the public isn't involved, I think is kind of not fair to our citizens. I think our citizens, as the mayor suggested, engage in council members all the time and have a good back and forth with them. They engage with our staff all the time. They interface with our staff all the time because our staff serves them, whether they're protecting them in the police department and the fire department, whether they're engaging them in community development or public works. Many of our staff members live in the city of Bothell. They're our friends and our neighbors, and we have had we've been through very, very open and robust public processes throughout this. One example would be the public process that came up with our downtown plan. We had a huge engagement of our community. Our community came very clearly in favor of a vision for our downtown. That doesn't mean there's council members, including Councilmember Sandberg, who've opposed parts of that vision. Even though the fact that our public engaged with it for a long time, that's okay. It's okay to have differences of opinion, and we do, but to imply that when people don't come up to our dais and see themselves on television or speak to the cameras, that somehow they don't care about our community, I don't think is fair. I don't think that's fair to our citizens. I think they care a lot about our community. I know our staff cares a lot. I know, as our finance director indicated, she had worked late into the night to respond to the questions that were asked. And I think, we spend a lot of time on this council working hard for the citizens, and I think the citizens have put a lot of confidence in us that we take the budget seriously, and this council, our mayor, our staff takes this responsibility very, very seriously. And I disagree with the premise of this motion, and I will not be supporting it.
Do you wish to speak to it, Councilmember Evans?
Thank you. We have numerous public meetings throughout the year, not only the council and our planning commission and parks board and whatever the case may be, but we also have meetings for development of master plans for parks, comp plans, on and on and on. We have capital facility meetings that we have input from the public. So I strongly support the public input, but the reality is, and I don't think that this is the first time that this has happened, that when a budget comes to the city council, at least the 7 years I've been on the city council, very, very seldom do we have any comments from the public. And that's not, I wish we had more input, but that's not saying that it's bad that they didn't get input. I think they do have input throughout the year. I think that's why we are elected to some degree, is that they are putting their trust in us to manage this process, to oversee it along with our staff. And if there are issues that they're concerned about, they're going to come to us, and they do throughout the year and at some of these meetings and throughout the process. But I just, to imply that we don't have enough public input, it's kind of like street preservation. We'll never probably have enough money to pay for all of our street preservation, but we're certainly going to try, and we're going to continue to try to get more public input. And the public, we want to hear from them, and there are meetings here for them to come and support. So I don't want to discount what we've already heard from the public and what we will continue to hear from them, and we'll certainly take more. But so with that, I'm in opposition of the motion or the amendment.
And Deputy Mayor Spivey, do you wish to speak on this?
Yes, I think both Councilmember Evans and Councilmember Lamb have hit most, if not all, the reasons that I won't be supporting it. There's ample opportunity for the public to come and meet and chat with us through this whole, at any time, and also through this whole budget process. And I just think that we can't force the public to come in and talk about the budget. To me, that it's just not right to try and force this on them. It's their decision whether they want to come talk to us, come to our meetings or not. And I respect their decision as to whether they, the level of participation that they would like to be in. And so I will not be supporting this amended motion.
Right. And I'm not going to be supporting it either. I believe that we do hear the voice of the public. We have several council members this evening who have spoken that they go to events and they hear from their friends and family and neighbors, and go to community events and hear from our fellow citizens of Bothell. So we are on the side of the people. We are hearing their voice. We are making decisions and moving the city in the way that we're hearing the majority of the city would like to go. So I'm proud at this point to take a vote. So we are going to stay on the voice vote system here. So all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. No.
No.
So that's 4 noes and 2 ayes. Councilmember Sandberg, you still have the floor.
Well, I guess I'll speak to the underlying motion.
All right.
I will not be supporting this budget. I do appreciate the time that staff has put in to creating this budget. But I don't feel the process allows for much modification of when the document is presented. When the document is presented to us, there's very little modification. And it is concerning to me that we're increasing our personnel budget by $6.1 million for this upcoming biennium. I think if the public was even told that in the Bothell Bridge, maybe some salient points about the budget, or that the budget conversation was going to occur, I think we might have heard something. And although I appreciate the city manager's attempt to find money in the budget to create a standalone parks department, that just, well, it speaks to 2 concerns of mine. One is that we're continuing to increase our personnel costs, and we're increasing our personnel costs with this change without increasing any bandwidth in the Parks Department. And as was stated, this is just phase 1. There's more to come with addition of more staff. And so we are going to continue to see significant increases in the budget, which we have heard from one member of the public, that we need to be very mindful about increasing people's property taxes, and we've utility rates, and then as a result the utility taxes go up. We have to be very mindful of that. And then to hear that we're finding $120,000 in the budget from an increase in property taxes that we weren't expecting, but we are factoring in a 1% increase in property tax in this budget, it concerns me. So there were a lot of questions that I didn't get to get clarification on, and for that reason, for the rising personnel costs, the inability to have an impact on this budget, I can't support it. So I will be voting no.
Okay. Councilmember Rayam.
So I will support the budget, and I do appreciate what staff has done here. I do want to reiterate that, I guess making a comment that I'd be curious to see what we could do potentially to change the process. It does not is not disrespectful to the existing process. I look at the world that way. I think there's always things that we can change and improve. And so I just really think I think we could do a few things a little bit better. This is the second time that I've seen the budget process here in Bothell, and I've been involved in city municipal budgeting processes for the last 15 years. I could say with almost embarrassment that I've had a lot larger influences on a municipality's budget than when I wasn't a council member than I have as a council member. And I just find that odd. And I also, the idea of collecting more public comment and trying to engage the public more, I supported that amending motion. And the main reason why was that I watched the adoption process of another city's budget. Yeah, I know, it's kind of scary. But the big take-home message I heard, and I wrote it down, there's 1,400 comments came in. 1,400 public comments came in to that budget process. And if they were not addressed by changes to the budget, they were put in a matrix of things to look at in the future, or things that, there was a parking lot. And, it just seemed like there was only a 10,000 person difference between the budget that I watched get passed and this city's, and the amount of people in this city is only 10,000 people different.
What city was it?
I don't want. Well, Redmond. That's where
Tempe,
I work.
What was it?
I work in Redmond.
Redmond.
So
all right.
That's why I would pay attention to their budget for the last 15 years. So I think there's places where we can improve that, and I also want to comment too that the process with the council, they had 7 study sessions. Not that all of these staff want to be here, 7 different study sessions, but and they didn't receive 1,400 comments during study sessions. Obviously, you don't get comments in study sessions. They actually had tools and they set up a web-based tool people could just chime in on. There's a lot of things that we could do, and I just feel like I do support this budget, and I really appreciate what it has in it. There's a lot of things that I feel like I've been heard by the staff, but at the same time, I just feel like we get the information at the 11th hour, and I actually feel bad at to say, wow, we should change this or that when it's in November and the thing needs to be adopted in December, because I know what happened between this time last year and when it came to us in November, and a lot of stuff transpires between that time. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that I think we could improve the process. Well, I guess the rest of the council isn't interested in doing so. So, but anyhow, I will support the budget.
Well, I just want to make clear, you have had a council member as we discussed the budget, and at this present time, you have the full ability to make an impact on the budget. In your role, you can make an amendment, you can gather support. That is your role as council member. Nobody is limiting your ability to make a real impact on the budget.
So can I respond to that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
So it
concerns me that you said you had no impact on the budget in your elected position to make impacts on budgets.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about too.
Well, it's your role, and you're the one taking responsibility for it. So this is your floor.
Yeah. So an example was, and I don't even remember what it was, but I brought it up last budget cycle and said I'd like to see more money go to this, and it doesn't matter what it was. But the answer that I got back was, well, where is that money going to come from? And so as a council member, as a city staff member too, I'd be scared to death of the council member from the dais just picking and choosing where to pull money out of to pay for something they want. So I don't want to do that as a council member. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't pretend to have the knowledge necessary to make those changes from the dais. You saw, just for clarity, we had a big change, which was brought up by Councilmember Evans, to actually create an entire new department during this budget process. And he said, I want it. He gathered support of the council and said, here's how we're going to find it, and this is what we're going to do. Right, but hold on a second. That was the second part of what I was going to say.
So I'm encouraging you. So this was the opportunity during this time, and here we are moving forward and already in a motion.
So I watched from home sick and watched the council meeting last week, and the reason why I bring it up is Councilmember Evans got the exact same response I did. It was, well, okay, Bill, that's fine. Where do you want that money to come from? Mm-hmm. And I just cringed and thought, wow, is that really our process? Is that the process as a council member, that we could say, well, we think more money should be allocated to this? The response back is, okay, well, where are you going to get that money from? I don't think that's okay. And as a council member, I'm not going to do that to something that staff have put hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours into to get to this point. It did happen for Councilmember Evans. And that's great. And it's encouraging to know that that actually can transpire. But that's
Yeah.
the first time in the 3 years I've been here I've seen that happen.
Perfect. I got off course because I want to address that concern because that was an important one, knowing that you can have the impact. One of the other two would like to speak to the underlying motion.
Well, I will be supporting the budget. I can tell you, just personal experience from participating in municipal government as the department director for almost 30 years, submitting a budget every year for 30 years. This process, starting in 1974, this process in Bothell isn't that different than it was in those 30 years that I participated. We would prepare a budget, it would be submitted to the council, there'd be public hearings, and it was not, I can count on one hand the number of comments we got on those budgets from the public. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, this is a huge document, and there's a lot of detail to it, and we can do a better job of getting more information out on the budget, and I think the staff has heard some of our input, and they've taken notes, as has been said, and they can include some of those things in the next process. I don't think that's many of those things are unreasonable, but I don't even think that's going to necessarily. It might encourage more input, and that's great if it does, but it may not. It hasn't in many of the years I've been involved in budgets in the past. So, and in reference to the Parks and Recreation Department, we did have a recreation division and a park maintenance division within the budget already. It was a matter of bringing those two together in one separate budget outside of Public Works. The cost of that is reported to be about $120,000 over 2 years. I ran the figures. They seemed a little different to me, a little less than that, but I didn't have all the analysis that the staff did here. But I believe that the benefit to the community from that's an additional service that we're going to be providing to the community, an expanded service. And I know from a personal standpoint, from 30 years of experience in this business, that the benefit that comes from Parks and Recreation. I hope no of our residents ever have to call the police and fire department, because if they do, that's probably a problem, and if they do, they're going to get good service. But I do know that they do go out on their own to parks, and they use trails, and a lot of things that improve the quality of life in our community. And so I just believe there's a real benefit back to our community, and as we expand our Parks and Recreation, add facilities and things, look at funding alternatives for Parks and Recreation in the future, I think there's going to be a real benefit offered to this community over a period of time for this additional fairly small amount of money that we're adding here and may add in the future. So I appreciate the input and working with the staff on this, and I will be supporting the budget.
Great, thank you. Deputy Mayor Spivey, are you interested in making comment on the underlying motion?
I am.
Okay.
So is it my turn, or was Councilmember Lamb up to go, or did he already go?
I haven't gone yet. I'll let you go first, buddy.
He's going to let you go.
No, I will go ahead and speak. I will be supporting the motion, and excuse me, I'll be supporting the motion. And as Councilmember Ream said, there's different ways to do things, and we're all exposed to how our life experiences allow us to see things differently. And I just, in his professional career in the city of Redmond, he sees how they do things there, and I see how they do things in Bellevue, and Councilmember Evans has seen how they've done things in other municipalities in his professional career. And I've been exposed to how things are done in different municipalities, and just I'd like everybody to keep an open mind, and we'll discuss this more at the retreat, but the ability to have our study sessions and then vote without, come to consensus at our study sessions and to vote on those items at the next meeting. I think that makes us more efficient, more streamlined, and allows us to get more work done that way. And so with the idea of being open-minded to other things on how we do business that Councilmember Rainham was pointing out, as well as Councilmember Sandberg, I look forward to that discussion, and in doing so, I will also support this motion.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting the motion. I do want to say a thank you to all of our staff. This is a huge process to put together a budget, and we're coming as a city out of a very deep recession. And through that recession, we not only we thrived in terms of the planning that we did. We were able to build. We were able to do some really important and lasting things on the capital side for our city. But I know that that was very hard on the personnel side of our city, and I know that the people who serve our citizens every single day dealt with less than they should have had during those times. And I really appreciate you being with us as a city, as an elected representative, and hanging with us. And I appreciate that this budget is now getting us back to a place where we can provide the level of service that that our citizens deserve. I view a budget as I don't weigh the success of a budget by how many people comment at the dais, but rather how many people we help as a city and how many people we serve and how efficiently and effectively we do it. I have served on this council longer than any other member. The most public comment that I think I've ever received on any issue, and I think Councilmember Gwynn will remember this, was Tent City. We had over 850 people pack into an auditorium to comment on Tent City, more than any other issue before or since that we've ever had. We haven't had a comment on Tent City since that meeting that we had. The issue has resolved itself. The leadership of the city responded appropriately. That doesn't mean our city doesn't care. It means that they reacted to a particular issue, made their views known, and moved on, and the city addressed it. I think with our budget process, I was reminded of the annexation process we had. We had a debate about whether or not we were going to almost double the size of our city. And I think I could probably count on one hand the number of people in our city who commented on that, pro or con. It was a very, very limited discussion inside the city of Bothell about that. I don't think that's because people in the city of Bothell don't care. I don't think that's because the issue wasn't well advertised. It was. There was an enormous amount of outreach inside the city. People budget their time as to how they would like to spend it. Some people are super active in the process and super, involved. That isn't. Some people choose to be involved by coaching their kid's soccer team or by volunteering at their child's school. Some people do it by have to work and will send an email or a phone call. All of those are equally valid and important ways of public participation. And it's a false metric to say nobody has stood up at the dais and asked the same questions I asked, so that means that we're failing as a council or that we haven't done our job. I just reject that in its entirety. I asked the question that I did about Seattle because I think it's important to put this into context. It's very easy to sort of bury yourself just in one approach and to say, "Oh my God, our pavement is failing; it's horrible." Until you pull your head up from the document and look around to other jurisdictions and say, "How are they doing? What are the approaches that they have?" The city of Seattle has a tax that is devoted to nothing other than street maintenance. And they have an over $500 million liability on that they're saying that they're deficient. Almost a quarter of the streets in the city of Seattle are in such bad repair, they can't get back to repair. They're going to have to be completely torn up. The city of Bothell is doing a lot better than that. Can we do better still? Absolutely. But it isn't really intellectually honest to focus, to not put our infrastructure issues into context. And we have, as the finance director correctly pointed out, devoted more resources to that, and I think that's important. Finally, I'm really proud of this budget. I'm proud of what we have done as a city together, working with our staff and working with our citizens, going through the greatest economic downturn since the Great Depression, while still providing quality services to our city, in really putting into action a citizen vision. I've never seen more citizen outreach than we did on our downtown plan. Our downtown plan is coming to life. But the mayor and I have had a chance to eat at Amaro Bistro, which is a new restaurant. It's our first new restaurant opened up in our downtown plan. It was packed with a bunch of people from Bothell who were enjoying it. that's the vision that's come to life, and that's something that our citizens were passionately engaged in and deeply engaged in for a period of years. And through our planning documents, through the capital facilities plan, through this budget, and through the day-to-day work that our staff does and the weekly work that our council does, we have helped implement the citizens' vision. This document is part of that. And I would add the change that Councilmember Evans made is a darn good one, and it gives lie to the notion that council members can't impact this process or that there aren't an ability to make changes. That was a substantial change. We created a new department. I think that was the right change. It was something that, as Councilmember Rayam correctly pointed out, there was some pushback from staff. Councilmember Evans worked in good faith with our city manager, and they came up with a proposal that they could both live with and they could both agree with, and that I believe in my heart will pay dividends for our children and for our community for many, many years to come. I think that's something to be excited about. That's a good thing, and that's something that shows that we can do that. I've listened to all the questions and all the comments, and at the end of the day, there wasn't a single motion to change $1 of spending, other than from Councilmember Evans, and I supported his motion. I think that's, it's great to comment on process, and it's great to say, well, I don't like this placement of this chart or this underlining or bolding of this title, but at the end of the day, a budget document is about spending money, and if you don't make a single proposal to change the spending of money, that it's not going to change. That's not how budgets work, and that's not how councils work. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm proud of the leadership that you've shown in this budget process. Mr. City Manager, thank you for your leadership in this as well. Thanks to our staff for everything that they have done, and to my fellow council members for their good questions and the robust discussion that we've had on this document.
Great, thank you. So I'll be the last to speak on this before we take a vote. I just appreciate your leadership as well. City Manager Stowe, and the hard work that you and your staff put together with Tammy and the three amigos at the back of the room who come to every meeting and stand behind you, Tammy. And I watch the family that's created there and how you all support each other. It's been impressive over the last several years that I've been on council and now served as mayor. But it's amazing to see that we really are a city hard at work. I know many of the staff members of the City of Bothell since being here for 41 years, been involved in the governmental process for, I'm counting how many years now, 10 years or so. So it's pretty exciting. Glad to be involved and excited to see that we as a staff, you as a staff, work extremely hard. You're very dedicated to what you do, to serving the citizens of Bothell. And this budget enables you to continue to be hard at work. We are here to serve the citizens of Bothell. I have heard the voice of the citizens of Bothell very clearly, and with my vote, I'll be supporting that voice. Our process is very public. Our process is very open. We have never barred the doors. We invite people in. We advertise. We have on TV and otherwise. So we're also going to be continuing to be a city that's hard at play, which is a new change here with a new Parks Department that Councilmember Evans has been pushing for at least 7 years. And here it comes in just the next few seconds that there will be a Parks Department for the City of Bothell, which is one of the most tangible ways that our citizens experience the benefit of their taxes going into the city, to pull collectively to create places for us to enjoy each other's company, enjoy each other's the presence, and have fun together, and get out and be citizens of Bothell and citizens of America and the world. So, an exciting time, opportunity to vote now. So we're not going to open it up for another opportunity.
I just wanted to ask, as a point of order, would council allow a second round of discussion?
I would not. I'm ready to go to a vote.
Aye.
Yep. Okay. So if everybody, actually, we're going to place our vote. All in favor of the underlying motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
So we have 5 ayes, 1 abstention,
And I would like
and
to
1
speak.
absent, and you have the opportunity. And 1 council member absent and excused. You have made an abstention vote. Would you like to speak to that?
I would like to speak to my abstention. In response to the comment that not $1, a motion was not made to change $1 of spending with the exception of Councilmember Evans' park request, I would like to respond that on November 26th, I made a very specific request about how much money it would cost to impact the street budget, to change the rating from 68 back to 70. I made a specific request, and yesterday my response was well, I don't want to answer that question at this time. So without information, I cannot make a specific dollar request. And I would like to point out that that request was made on November 26th for specific information, and Councilmember Evans made his request for specific information on December 2nd. So had I been given the information that I requested, I would have been able to make an amending motion that could have impacted the budget.
Okay, so that's the reason for your abstention. I find it disappointing that you take the opportunity to slap at staff member who you then recategorized or reflected improperly their response to your question. But that's how you took your time, which is highly unfortunate. So we have already passed this budget to go forward. Deputy Mayor Spivey, before you go, this is a point of personal privilege for me and more so for you, but people in the city of Bothell literally are not doing backflips, but per Director Weislogle showed me, they're doing front flips in the city of Bothell because of the football team that you are closely associated to. Would you take a moment or two just to speak to that exciting game that happened with the Bothell High School football team on Saturday?
Well, I will speak to it. I'm not sure that I could do it justice. It was a very well-fought game on both sides. Chihuahua is a very well-coached team. They have some great athletes on that team, and they've overcome adversity this last season with their the coach's son, their quarterback, having sustained a very severe injury where he's paralyzed, and that took him out of his ability to participate with the team on the field. But he was there with them every game and gave his spirit and his support to his teammates. And they overcame that adversity to play in the state final game, and they gave a excuse me, they gave us a great game. It was as a coach and as a fan, it was a game that you wanted to participate in, and it was a wonderful effort on both sides. Our boys from Bothell High School, they did a great job. They've done a great job all season long. They've taken and overcome their own adversity in losing Sam McPherson during the playoffs and overcame that. But it was a joy as a coach to see how this group of young men came together and embraced each other in the idea of family and got better every week to eventually culminate in a state title win. Yeah. And it was just a great game to be at. Lots of energy and enthusiasm from all the, as we refer to them, the B-Town fans that came down to the Tacoma Dome. It was just a wonderful day, and really proud of our community for supporting the boys, as well as very proud of the boys for the things that they give back to the community on some of their weekends and some of the events that they do.
Well, I appreciate your leadership, and what I appreciate more than you teaching them the game of the football is how to be men in our community and to give back. So thank you so much for speaking to their lives on that team. Councilmember Ray would love to jump in on this discussion.
Deputy Mayor, I was down there and I saw you, and I was really impressed. I wanted to say that you got the crowd more engaged than I've seen any other coach in all the football games I've ever watched. They really reacted to you, and it was just a great showing of your leadership skills. And they're better to have you on that coaching staff. So I just want to let you know I was there and I saw, and I was really impressed. And it was a great game. It really was fantastic.
That's cool.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words, as well as you, Mayor. I really, it all goes. Coach Boehner, he's the one that's he's the one that's led by example for all of us as coaches and players to really embrace each other as not only teammates but as a community. And it was just great that the community could be there, and all I had to do was ask, and they responded, and that's what community is all about. And it was a wonderful evening that we'll be celebrating for a while, I'm sure.
Right. Well, so I'd like to make a proclamation, but I'd like to invite the team. But I think, do you think it's best we probably have that at the first meeting in January?
Well, it's funny you should say that. Congresswoman Bill Benny's office contacted me about what events are going to be going on, and so I'll be talking with Coach Gaynor to find out what would be the best time for some of these events to culminate, and I will get back to yourself and the city manager so that we can plan accordingly.
Good, appreciate it. All right, all the best to you and your family.
Great.
Oh, do you want to stay for a Sound Cities report?
Gotta put 'em-
Actually, I think you're only allowed for protocol to stay for one item.
Well, if you don't mind, I've been driving for 13 hours today and had dinner and then jumped on into this meeting. So if you don't mind, I'd like to call it a day and bow out of the committee reports.
I think that's fine. All right, have a great night.
Great, thank you all, and if I don't see you, have a very happy holiday season.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So this is a committee report for Sound Cities Association, and we have, I serve on the committee, Sound Cities Association for the city of Bothell, and that we vote on things on a regional basis. And I typically just they're usually pretty benign, but this one I wanted to get a polling of the council to figure out which way I should vote. We do vote, the Public Issues Committee of the Sound City Association votes on things. And this one is to send, I don't know who they're going to send this to. I imagine the legislature in some form or fashion to say that the Sound Cities Association supports legislation to lift the 1% property tax revenue limit on property tax. And so, so I would just like to get everybody's, see where the majority of this council is at on that, and to weigh in accordingly at the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'm not in favor of that.
Neither am I.
I would be interested in the discussion.
Okay.
We've got a lot of unfunded programs here, and I don't know how we're going to fund them, but I guess that's one alternative to be discussed.
Okay, how about you, Councilmember Sandberg?
I'd need to hear more of the discussion.
Yeah.
Do you know when is the next Sound Cities meeting?
It's tomorrow night.
You have to take a vote at that time?
I have to take a vote tomorrow night.
Goodness gracious. So what about you? Where do you stand?
Well, so I've talked about this a bit, that if you look at our utility rate increases and how they're 6%, 5%, 8%, somewhere in that ballpark, and then cities for over a decade have been stuck. Well, not stuck. Their maximum amount to increase property tax is 1% per year, and the cost of providing services has escalated far greater than 1% per year. So we have seen at the municipal level, well, it includes counties, a gap between what the money is that we can bring in and the cost of the services that we provide. So the idea would be, it wouldn't just be carte blanche. I don't know how it would all end up. It would just basically ask the legislature to look at the 1% property tax cap and look for alternatives to it or eliminate it altogether. So I don't really have much more to add than that.
When did they present you with the idea?
They presented it in our November 12th packet, and I guess I could have sent that ahead of time.
This isn't
in
like
hindsight.
delivering the budget late, say 2 months ago to the city, is it? So at this point, it's not something that we could get behind and support. I don't hear that we have 2 council members that are absent and excused this evening. So I don't think it would be appropriate for you to take a yes vote on it. I don't think it would be appropriate to take a no vote on it. Potentially, you could take what Councilmember Sandberg did tonight, do an abstention and say, reason why is I didn't present it timely enough to my council to make a decision. We didn't have a full council once we did. That would be my direction.
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to be going into an executive session for potential litigation. I don't perceive that we'll be coming back. We'll be in executive session for approximately a half hour. And we will be adjourned after that executive session.